Hey guys, it's Chris, and welcome to the Toned and Toneful video podcast, episode number 29. Leaders Remove Confusion. So today, guys, I wanted to take some time to talk about a subject that's a little bit different than where we've been. The last few episodes have been episodes that have been about self-reflection, and they've been about kind of that internal work that we do within ourselves so that we can be a better part of our community or a better friend or something better to those who are around us. But no matter what community you're in, you guys have all known that we've had leaders. And this episode is about some of those leadership capabilities and skills that we can build up in ourselves so that when we're around others, we might be able to be the best leaders that we can be. Of course, it's very important to be a good leader to yourself. And as you're a good leader to yourself, these principles will apply to being a leader in communities and environments around us. As you know, like if you've been at work or you've been in a band, you've had people who are leaders that are, people who lead through example, which is, to me, a great way to lead. And you've had leaders who've led through fear, which is, to me, not a great way to lead. And you've also had people who were leaders that were very humble and used their story and used examples from their life to show you the lessons that it takes to kind of become a leader. So some people are building leaders. So there's like a lot of different types of leaders that you've run into in your life. And so I want to talk about a couple of these different examples and why removing confusion through leadership is one of the most important things you can do so you can build stability in your team and build stability within yourself. Now, when you kind of go into the mindset of being a leader, it's always a tough one because being a leader is not only being a commanding person or being a person who knows everything, because knowing everything is nothing that any of us can do. None of us know everything is what I'm saying. And so I think that thinking that we need to know everything or being very commanding is sometimes a very, very diminished view of what being a leader is. Being a leader is a lot of different dynamics placed into one thing. And I think that when we are the correct kind of leader for people who are around us and when we are the correct kind of leader for those who are in our community, not only can we be a powerful person in that community, which shouldn't be the aim, but the power comes in a way that you're able to uplift people and you're able to create new leaders, because there's a lot of people in this world who actually have the skills to be great leaders and they're just unaware of it, or they need to level up to be a leader so they can get to the next part of their life. And as a person who's a good leader, you want to bring those people up who are around you so that they can go to a new level in their life. Now, people who are leaders, a lot of times, I think they feel a lot of pressure. So it is easy for them to kind of see the world from a standpoint that I'm responsible for all these things. It's a little bit frustrating. All these people have like questions for me. Or they might be on the other side of it where they love the people coming to them with questions and they love people being able to come to them. But at the same time, they're both of these types of leaders are still dealing with things from the point of view of stress. And I think one of the ways that we can eliminate some of this stress is actually taking a moment to go back and look at, are we removing confusion? So these are some of the things that I've noticed in being a leader in my life, being a person who's either led a band thing for a while or been a person who's a boss at my job, which I'm currently a person who's a pretty high tier manager at my job. And so when I take a look at helping people become better at their job or helping them become leaders themselves, these are some of the things that I think about. Leading through example is a really great way, first off, to be a good leader. If you want people to see how a job is done, if you aren't doing a job that way, how could you ever expect it from somebody else? So I think one of the biggest things that you can do is showing people how to work correctly. This could be having a pretty regimented schedule with your work, making sure that when you are doing your work, it's in an organized fashion, because when we're organized and we have a schedule, that's one of the first things that's going to remove confusion for ourselves and remove confusion for those who are around us. So if you're a leader of any sort, whether again that's in a job or it's in a band, are you doing the same things at the same time every day? Are you creating a situation where if people go and they do a certain job, they know, hey, at 10 a.m. I need to be doing this. Or hey, right before the gig, I need to be like setting up cables and doing this. Or is it, hey, as soon as we're about to start, these are the warm-ups I do on the instrument that of my choice that, the band leader has us doing these right before we start. So we're nimble, we're ready, and our ears are ready to be, attuned to what's going on. And I think that schedule format is one of the first things that you can work on, because not only is that like kind of like the building block of what everything goes from, but that is something that I think a lot of leaders lack. A lot of leaders don't have like a really super clear schedule. And that is one of the first things that makes confusion. If you're a leader who is, not very, organized with your day, the people around you are going to tend to float around. The people around you are going to tend to do what they want to do with that schedule, because it's natural for people who are looking up to leadership to be like, yo, like, okay, they just do whatever. I'm going to just do whatever. So I think one of the first things we can do is make a schedule. And that kind of pertains to ourselves as well, as we lead ourselves. When you wake up in the morning, do you actually have a clear set routine? For me, when I wake up, I have a pretty set routine before I go to work. If I have 3 hours, there's a certain routine. If I have 6 hours before work, there's a certain routine, depending on how my schedule looks that day. So for me, I wake up, I do, a few health-oriented things in the first 15 minutes of my morning. And then I directly go into my journaling. The journaling is done in a certain way. As soon as the journaling is done, I go and make sure that I take care of like things that I want to do that might be project oriented really quickly for that first hour to 2 hours. And I might be off to work. Or if I have a longer morning, I'll get my workout in that type of day. And then that day I might use some time to do some guitar practice or go over some ideas that maybe I was playing the night before and retesting them out the next day and making sure that my skill set's where I need it to be, so I feel comfortable for the day and I can move on with my day clearly. And when I get to work, I have a certain schedule when I'm there. And that's one of those things that I think a lot of people might lack. They might wake up 30 minutes before work one day because they stayed up till 2 in the morning. Then one day they might wake up really early because they went to bed kind of earlier, and then they wake up really early in the morning, and then now they have all this time and they don't really know what to do with their time, so they just surf their phone. That is the kind of schedule that you don't want. You don't want to be having a day that's disorganized right off the bat. Your mental ability to be organized is very, very hard from that point. I don't know the exact amount of number of neurons that your brain makes in the morning, or new brain cells, because our brain is neurogenic, but those new cells we get between 1,200 to 1,600 a day. I don't know the direct number. But if you were to have these new cells in your brain and they can be reprogrammed, because our body is all programming, we'd want to be programming those cells, and we want to be programming our body and our mindset in a way that when we wake up and when we are working to have a organized schedule throughout the day, that it's very easy for us to focus. And part of that focus actually does come from organization. So I think that having a schedule first off the bat is one of the things that you want to do to lead by example. And then the second thing in leading by example is consistency of your work. I think a lot of people can work really hard on something for a little while, depending on their inspiration or depending on if they're really feeling something. But the only unfortunate thing with life is inspiration isn't forever, and the feeling of loving something doesn't that new love feeling, oh, I got this goal and then I'm gonna do it. That doesn't always last forever. That's the kind of feeling that, if we're not careful, can be gone pretty easily, and we can end up in a space in our life that, dang, I don't have this all locked in. Dang, I don't, feel it today. And if you feel that way, where you get to a point where you're not feeling what you're doing anymore, or you're not feeling the inspiration, it's very easy to fall right off with what you're doing. And as a leader for yourself, again, first, how are you going to lead yourself to get something done if you can't even stay consistent with yourself? And furthermore, how could you get that from your team or your bandmates and things like that? So if you're the band leader and you're the guy who's like, hey, you're showing up to practice and you're not knowing the songs, how could you be mad at them if you're showing up and you don't know the songs, or you're not prepared for them in a way that when they have questions, you know what's going on, you're consistent, you can go, hey, I noticed that you're having a little situation with this certain chord being on time, or this certain chord, the way you're playing it. I noticed there's a couple dead notes in it. This is what we need to do to alleviate that situation, because I've been working on it. And so I know how to help you get through it. Just as well as if someone's coming into work and they're not properly ready for work, their workstation isn't ready, and they have a messy desk and they make a lot of mistakes, how could you expect consistent good work out of them if they go up to your desk and your desk is a mess and your desk and your things are all over the place? And you're consistently going, oh yeah, I forgot this, but don't worry, like we'll get to it a little later, or can we change this, like, because my schedule's a little weird today. Why is your schedule weird today? How come your schedule isn't planned out in a way that has made an accommodation? Have you been consistent with communicating with your team? Because consistency not only is doing the same things to a similar level all the time, to a very good degree, but it's also communication. Being consistently in communication with your team and talking to them and letting them know what's going on in your mind and letting them know what's going on with upcoming things that might be different, that is the best way to keep consistency if you do have things that are changing. Some of you may have situations that one day a gig is at 7 p.m. and one day a gig is at 9 p.m. And if that's going to be something that's going to be different for you, you need to lock in how those details are different, whether that's, hey, load in time is at this time this day, but is it consistent? Like, so if your gig's at 7 and load in time's at 4 and you have a 9 o'clock gig, wouldn't your load in time be at like 6 or be at 5 so that you still have about the same amount of time before the gig? Are you guys eating in a consistent time before the gig? Are you guys warming up for a consistent amount of time before the gig? And that same thing goes to work. Are you expecting your workers to arrive 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early so that they can get in and start being ready for their work and being consistent instead of being, oh, well, I'm 15 minutes late. Well, what's going on with that? And not saying anything to them, or, oh, so-and-so is always late. We got to really be working on our consistency in order to be a good leader in life, because that removes a lot of confusion. Because if you're leading by example and you're very consistent, there is a very, very, very good expectation from those around you and from yourself about how you're going to get things done, about how you're going to pull together the details of what you're working on so that it doesn't turn into a thing that ends up being just, a roundabout of confusion and a roundabout of people just doing whatever they think that they want to do, because that is a real hard thing as a leader. Once you have 3 or 4 people under you or more, and they're all just doing things on their own consistent mindset or an inconsistent mindset of, oh, I'll just do this then. And like, oh, I'll show up 5 minutes late and this person's 15 minutes early and this person's over here. And before the gig, this person eats at this time and this person didn't eat. And then this person went over here and this person went over there, and you're looking for people. You are not going to feel good as a leader. You're going to feel like, why is no one like down for this cause? Why is no one like really locked into the purpose? Why is everybody kind of not really on the mission? Because how could they really be on a mission together if like the whole crew isn't together? Like, do you think that, dare I even bring not dare I, but like, let's bring up like a very funny example just to make it fun. Like pirates. Pirates are very organized. And like maybe they're not the best people in the world for their moral reasons, but do you think that one guy could be doing this on a boat and one guy could be doing this on a boat and another guy could be doing that and it's all just disorganized? No, they need to be on that boat getting everything together. And even a group of pirates has a captain, because there's a level to this that it needs to be dialed in. And the captain knows where people need to be, when, why, and he is aware, she is aware that leading people is not something that happens by circumstance. It is something that happens by conscious decision. Leading people is not something that happens by consequence. It's something that happens by like literal conscious decision. You guys need to see that these aren't coincidences. Leaders are the people that they are for a reason. And if you have a bad leader who leads through fear, someone who will threaten to punish you all the time or threatens to fire you or threatens that like, I don't want to be in this group anymore because you guys aren't good enough, that is where we know that we have a bad leader. And having a bad leader is one of the toughest things, because, and this is a side tangent on, bad leaders, but having a bad leader is a very tough thing to be under. And I think that if you're a person who wants to be a leader, or someone who's looking for mentorship into being a leader, or you have someone who's incredibly disorganized, leads through fear, leaves confusion, I think what you need to do is go into like maybe what some of these earlier episodes that I put out are, and go back into self, reflection and go back into like finding your purpose in your tribe and rejoining maybe a different group of people so that you can find a leader that leads the way you want, or you can be a leader that is in the fashion that's appropriate for those around you, so you guys can make something that is much more functional and something that leads to the purpose and the mission. One of the saddest things for me to see is watch a leader who belittles the people around them, is disorganized for the people around them, and not only leaves their self in a bad place, because a lot of those leaders don't ever feel good about what they're doing or feel good about themselves, but the people who are around them actually feel horrible too. And that is a really bad situation, because leaders, putting that down it's just like being a bad parent or being in a bad relationship. The aim that we should always be having is, how can I create relationships and how can I create situations where we are going towards our functional movement, towards the purpose, towards what we want, so we can develop an actual result and get success. So as a leader, you have different goals at different times too as well. So if you're the kind of person who wants to be a good leader and you don't want to be like one of those bad leaders who's disorganized, belittling, and bothered with the performance of those under you, you got to realize that starts with you. And you got to realize that starts with you being a good leader to yourself. And while you're a good leader to yourself and you're starting to level up, and you maybe notice some of these good traits coming in yourself, you're like, cool, I'm actually like living by a schedule. Cool, I'm actually like leading by example. And I have a schedule for the day that everybody knows what they're doing. They know where they need to be and where and why, and you can explain that to them. You're leading by example in the sense of you're working to a certain level of quality to a consistent amount. So they're like, yo, so-and-so is working so hard all the time. Like, I feel like I got to like work like that too. I got to be a mirror reflection of that. Because when you're a good leader, the people who are around you are going to mirror that. They're going to feel this internal level to want to mirror that. Now, if someone can't keep up with that and someone can't, be there like at the level, you need to start finding out the reason. And this is why the next thing I think a good leader is going to do is going to be a good coach. Communication is really important, like we spoke about, but are you communicating with your team in the fashion that it actually builds up that type of person? Do you know the different personality types in your team so that you can build them up in a way that they can become a better person without you having to badger them, but by you uplifting them and being able to point out maybe qualities that aren't up to par without it being, you being the kind of leader who has to belittle them, the kind of leader who has to make them feel bad just to get something going? Is someone a visual learner? Is someone an auditory learner? Is somebody the person who needs to see you do something again? And then while you do it again, they're like, oh, I get it. As a band leader, you might need to play a rhythm part with a rhythm person in your group 300 times. So if you're a good lead guitar player and you can't play the rhythm, or you're a good lead violin player, but you can't go along and like kind of help the other people in the string ensemble, like kind of like nail out a part that's under it, you can't show them how it's done, you're going to be in a very, very, very bad position, because that is not only leading through example, but that is learning how to coach. So it's not only like knowing what is right, but it's knowing how to get the words out of your mouth right, and knowing how to like get to that person in a way where they're like, oh, I get it. And you really need that from people, because you don't want to be the kind of leader that is stressed out. And the more that you know how to coach your team, the less stressed you are, because they're building as people. They're building up their skill set, they're building up their mindset, and their confidence is growing in you and their self as they see their self leveling up from your leadership. So if someone's having a hard time doing something right, and you can find a way to bring them to a level where they're doing it right, and then you can go, yo, like, you're doing a really good job on this now. Like, I'm really happy to see that little struggle is no longer a struggle for you. Good job, so-and-so. Like, if you can get to that point, you're really living in the eyes of quality leadership. You're really living in the place where you know that you can take somebody from being at a, maybe a non-skilled level, bringing them into your team and developing into someone that is part of a team that does high quality work together. And this is so, so important. I think this is important for parents. I think this is important for band leaders. I think this is important for leaders in every job in the world. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people view leadership as just, again, dictation, strength, and threatening kind of attitudes. There's a lot of bosses who I've seen throughout life and I've met and I've been under that have led through oh, you're in trouble. Oh, you're next time you do that, you're fired. Next time you do this, you might not have this job. And while sometimes that might be appropriate at a point or another, if someone can't ever level up or they refuse, maybe they're very subordinate, that's a different thing. But our goal as a leader is to hopefully never get to that point, is to hopefully cut off those situations before it gets there. If someone's feeling unconfident or they have something going on in their life, you need to learn to listen. And that's part of that communication. So as coaching, you have to remember that coaching is not only noticing how someone learns and knowing a skill and bringing those together, but it's also the psychology of knowing how to hear people out and see what's wrong and develop them so that they can live in a world where maybe there's an inadequacy they're dealing with. Maybe they feel a certain way, and we're human beings. We have feelings. No matter what we do, there's a feeling maybe associated with that day. Maybe the feeling doesn't last forever. Maybe the feeling isn't an always thing, but we've got to get people out of bad feelings and out of certain places sometimes in order to even coach them. So that's something you have to think of as well. I mean, this is a very complex situation, being a leader and removing confusion. Hey, what's going on? Well, I'm having a really bad day. Okay, well, what's going on with this bad day? Well, no. Okay, well, I can see that all those things, that's really rough. But how can I help you to get past that? And if the person is, kind of complaining a lot and stuff, how do you take that complaining and turn it around on them? Hey, well, I understand that you have all these things going wrong, but I think that if we were to improve this skill that I know you've been working on and I know that you've been getting better at, and we fix this, wouldn't you feel a little better today? Wouldn't you feel a little bit better even though part of this day is bad? Shouldn't we salvage the rest of the day that is good? And teaching them mindset and teaching them perspective. Because as a leader, we might just have a little more perspective. That might be what it is as a leader. You just have more perspective. It's the bird's eye view versus the ground side view of being like a bug. You see the movie A Bug's Life, or you see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and the blade of grass is looks like a tall building. If you are in that perspective where you're looking at your life from here, it's very hard to see from the eagle's point of view that, wow, there's all these different lives. There's all these different things going on. And there's ability to fix these little situations. And I think that if you have that perspective, you should use that as a gift. You should use that as something that can help people rather than be the kind of leader who's well, sorry your day is bad, and then just kind of moving on with it, or being well, I don't care, or not even asking them, even the worst, not even asking them, not even finding out where someone could be during a day so that you can help them work on that. So you guys can see that there's so many levels to this communication, and there's so many levels to coaching, because coaching kind of encompasses a lot of different levels. And I think the last thing that you could look for as a leader, this is not the last thing, but this is another thing that you could add into the list of things that you're talking about when you're removing confusion, is who is going to be the leader after you? If we are actually moving forward in life, we're either moving up on the scale of leadership, or we might be moving to something different. And I've had an episode before where I talked about, and I'll link it, an episode before where I've talked about, this is, sometimes what you're doing in life, you have to be okay with moving on to a new thing in life. Sometimes you get to the end of a certain, phase of your life or a certain season. You get to the point where you're oh, cool, I've done, this type of work for so long that I feel like these are things I've mastered, and somehow there's a calling inside of me to go do this new thing or this new subject or this new skill. And you need to be looking around you and going, who's the person who seems to be exemplifying the skill of perspective? Who's the one who, if they needed to show someone else or coach someone else or lead by example or have a schedule, who seems to be gripping onto this the most, and that I can build up into somebody who could be that for these people still? And as I leave, they bring in new people and build up the team and build up this leadership. You got to be asking yourself that. Maybe the position you're in, you're just going to be the leader forever and that's what it is. Cool. But I think most of us in life, as we phase into different phases and seasons of our life, we're going to look at life in a perspective that I hope that this thing that I built, I hope that this community that I have isn't just going to get lost, isn't just going to turn into mush and then fall apart. I think one of the worst things that I hear leaders say is, oh, this place would fall apart without me. To me, that is one of the signs of a really bad leader. That means you haven't done any of the other parts in the beginning of this. We haven't done any of that. You haven't set up consistency. You haven't set up a schedule by leading by example and being a person who leads through hard work, a person who's coaching people. If you can literally say, oh, what would this place be without me? You have not done your job. That means you have not built up the personalities around you, you have not built up the people around you, and you have not found the team that you need to be that. It's no different than being a parent. If you're growing up as a parent and your kids can't pay their bills, your kids can't be educated, your kids can't see kind of like, oh, mom and dad are getting old and I need to level up and I need to help. And then on top of that, I want to have my own family and I want to do this. And like, I have these goals for myself. No matter how tough the world gets or no matter how tough what's going on is happening, you need to be building up that faith and you need to be building up that determination in those around you so that they are able to withstand the situations going on around them. So this is hyper important to me in a leadership capability, is knowing who's coming next and developing them to have the perspective that you have. That doesn't mean they need to act like you or be like you or have your same personality. They might not be funny in the same way. They might not joke around the same way. They might be funnier than you. They might joke around more often. They might have a certain way of saying what you say that's different. They might have a certain way of pointing out something's wrong. And it might be better or worse than you, but they need to work on it. And the goal is hopefully that they become better than you, that they live through seeing you do something and they go, I'm going to make this small tweak on what Chris used to do and it's going to turn into like this for my team. And we really need to see that in people. That is something I feel is really lacking in today's age, is real leadership and real solid humanism from the inside. I see a lot of people who want to have this many followers on whatever social media platform they're on. Oh, I got so many followers. Okay, but if you're a really good leader and all these people are following you, what are you selling them? What are you telling them? Are you just the kind of person who has a bunch of sponsors and you're just like shoving like products down their throats just to sell them products? Or are you the kind of leader who's showing people education and the kind of, if you're an influencer, the kind of influencer who's showing people how to be a better person for themselves and let them make their own decisions? Are you the kind of influencer that, hey, I'm going to show you this guitar chord and this is how it's used, but you can do what you want with it. And these are some different ways that it can be used. And this is how it sounds in this kind of music or that kind of music. Are you that kind of influencer? Or are you the kind of guy who's like, yeah, I got this new guitar and you should buy it too? All right. Like maybe you're doing the company a favor, but are you doing people a favor? And you might not even be doing the company a favor if you're getting the wrong people to join their group, join their community. If you got people coming to go see your band and you're just advertising it as this thing, or you're saying, hey, come see me, and then people come out and see you, but they don't like a certain type of music, are you helping your band? Or do you have a bunch of people come see you and they go, wasn't really my thing, and they tell everyone it wasn't their thing, and then the next show you have no one shows up because the wrong kind of people are there? Because being a leader is actually like now being beyond finding your tribe, it's building your tribe. So these are things that have been on my mind recently as I've been thinking about what self-reflection the next level is. And it's the reflection of what a leader is. And I think you guys, the people in this Toned and Toneful community, they're all people who are so giving. And I get so many personal messages again from you guys that I'm so thankful for that are along the mindset of building stuff, along the mindset of wanting to be better. And I'm so happy to be around that. I'm so happy to be around people who want to grow. And to talk alongside you guys and build alongside you guys is one of my greatest pleasures. So I want to say thank you to you guys, and thank you for always hearing out these long episodes. And again, if you guys are looking to hear episodes in an audio format, do you guys want me to make something that's a downloadable? Should I make a an account where you guys can download these as MP3s or waves and listen to them, so you can listen to them while you work out? Or is it easier still on YouTube? Again, I'm loading up all the remaining videos on YouTube. They're so big, my internet is not the quickest, so I've been kind of dealing with, like, sometimes it takes several days to load up. But I appreciate you guys. And I try to be the best leader for myself that I can. And maybe hopefully one day being a great leader for those around me as I work more and more on each one of these skills myself and put my humbleness forward and put my ego away somewhere else. And I put my leadership more forward and my example more forward and teach others things that I know that I think are important that might help them so that they can have a great time. That's what matters so much to me. And I'm so thankful because every time I step forward myself and work on something, there's someone around me who tells me another new thing that I can add to things like this, that I can add for things for you guys and for myself. And it makes my existence wonderful. So I just wanted to say thank you to you guys. I hope that your next week goes well. And I hope that this last week of January is solid for you guys, because every day is an opportunity to live up a goal. I know we might have New Year goals, but I've heard from a lot of people that they really like to do daily things, or they have like little things that they don't like a yearly goal. Sometimes that's like too cliche, or like, it's too big of a thing to see. Very understandable. If we take one pebble at a time or one little scoop of sand at a time and build our sandcastle, after a certain amount of time, we have a sandcastle. So I just want to tell you guys that I know this episode has been long, but I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the community that we're building. Know that I'm doing a lot of work behind the scenes for more things for us. I have some merch ideas that are coming to life right now that I think would be really cool for you guys. And it would be really neat to share some Toned and Toneful merch with you guys. It would be really neat to share MP3s or waves with you guys if that's something you're interested in. And also, I love just sharing my ideas with you and you guys listening. So I really appreciate you all. I hope you have a great week. And above all else, stay toned and toneful.